All right, guys, so President Biden gave a speech the other day, and he was heckled. He was heckled by Manuel Oliver, whose 17-year-old son, Joaquin, was killed in the Parkland, Florida school shooting. So, got a little video of it here. Short video. Let's take a look.
Despite the naysayers, we can make meaningful progress on dealing with gun violence. Because make no mistake, sit down, you'll hear what I have to say. If you think you...
I've been trying to tell you this for years.
Let me finish my comment. Let him talk. Let him talk. No one, okay? Because make no mistake about it, this legislation is real progress, but more has to be done. The provision of this new legislation is going to save lives, and is proof that today's politics, we can come together despite the naysayers.
Okay. So, I mean, his kid was killed in a mass shooting, and he's like, this bill that you signed is nowhere near enough. So let me give you the specifics on that here, and you guys can make your own mind up. Biden signs bipartisan gun safety bill into law. God willing, it's going to save a lot of lives. So this was on June 25th. President Joe Biden on Saturday signed into law the first major federal gun safety legislation passed in decades, marking a significant bipartisan breakthrough on one of the most contentious policy issues in Washington. Quote, God willing, it's going to save a lot of lives, Biden said at the White House as he finished signing the bill. The legislation came together in the aftermath of recent mass shootings at Uvalde, Texas Elementary School in Buffalo, New York, supermarket that was in a predominantly black neighborhood. A bipartisan group of negotiators set to work in the Senate and unveiled legislative text on Tuesday. The bill, titled Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, was released by Republican Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and Democratic Senators Chris Murphy of Connecticut and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. The House on Friday passed the bill 234 to 193, including 14 Republicans voting with Democrats. The Senate passed the bill in a late-night vote Thursday. In his remarks Saturday, the president announced he'd host members of Congress who supported the landmark gun safety legislation at a White House event on July 11th following his return from Europe to celebrate the new law with the families of gun violence victims. The package represents the most significant new federal legislation to address gun violence since the expired 10-year assault weapon ban of 1994 that was called the Brady Bill. Though it fails to ban any weapons and falls far short of what Biden and his party had advocated for and what polls show most Americans wanted to see. Quote, while this bill doesn't do everything I want, it does include actions I've long called for that are going to save lives, Biden said. Today we say more than enough. We say more than enough. This time, when it seems possible to get anything done in Washington, we are doing something consequential. All right, so here we go. Here's the important parts. It includes $750 million to help states implement and run crisis intervention programs. The money can be used to implement and manage red flag programs, which through court orders can temporarily prevent individuals in crisis from accessing firearms, and for other crisis intervention programs like mental health courts, drug courts, and veterans courts. So look, this provision is a little weaselly because it's like, let's incentivize the states to do their own red flag laws. They don't have a great track record of when you incentivize them to do X, Y, or Z that they do it. They usually just don't do it. So I would have preferred a national red flag law. Obviously, they ran into Republican opposition and weren't able to get that in the bill. But that would be far preferable. It would be far preferable to do a national red flag law. This bill closes a years-old loophole in domestic violence law, the boyfriend loophole, which barred individuals who have been convicted of domestic violence crimes against spouses, partners with whom they share children, or partners with whom they cohabitated from having guns. Old statutes didn't include intimate partners who may not live together, be married, or share children. So they closed that loophole. Now, if you have done domestic violence, then you can't get a weapon. Doesn't matter if you live with the person, don't live with the person, etc. Now the law will bar from having a gun anyone who is convicted of a domestic violence crime against somebody they have a continuing serious relationship of romantic or intimate nature. The law isn't retroactive. It will, however, allow those convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence crimes to restore their gun rights after 5 years if they haven't committed other crimes. So it's not even retroactive, which means, people who've already flown under the radar will continue to fly under the radar. So that's very, very weak, if you ask me. The bill goes after individuals who sell guns as primary sources of income but have previously evaded registering as federally licensed firearms dealers. It also increases funding for mental health programs and school security. Just before signing the bill, Biden praised the families of gun violence victims with whom he had met. He said their activism in the face of loss was a difference maker. All right, so that's the gist of the bill right there. There are some more provisions, I guess, but that's the gist of it. In terms of, how good it is, I'll leave that up to you guys. I would have voted for it, but I would have been holding my nose as I did it because I don't think it's anywhere near enough. I mean, I think it's kind of egregious that we can't even get a national red flag law, which polls through the roof, by the way, and we can't even get like a ban on high-capacity magazines, for example. I mean, I'd also support new testing in order to, for people to basically prove that they're responsible enough to own a firearm. That, of course, is not even in the conversation, and that one might not even get through the Supreme Court, who would slap it down as unconstitutional. But then there's also this that Biden did as well. I'll share this with you. Fact sheet, the Biden administration's 21 executive actions to reduce gun violence. Okay, so let's see if they're listed here. Keeping especially dangerous weapons and repeat shooters off our streets. The Justice Department issued a final rule to rein in the proliferation of ghost guns, which are unserialized, privately made firearms that are increasingly being recovered at crime scenes. The Attorney General directed every U.S. Attorney's office nationwide to increase resources dedicated to district-specific violent crime strategies. The Justice Department issued a proposed rule to better regulate when devices marketed as firearm stabilizing braces effectively turn pistols into short-barreled rifles, subject to the National Firearms Act. The Justice Department published Model Extreme Risk Protection Order legislation to make it easier for states that want to adopt these red flag laws to do so. So these are executive orders that he signed. They say 21 of them were on guns. The Justice Department issued the first volume of its new comprehensive report on firearms commerce and trafficking. The Justice Department announced a new policy to underscore zero tolerance for willful violations of the law by federally licensed firearm dealers that put public safety at risk. The Justice Department launched 5 new enforcement strike forces focused on addressing significant firearms trafficking corridors that have diverted guns to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. The Department of Veterans Affairs launched a new paid media campaign featuring a series of public service announcements to reinforce the key message that a simple gun lock can save lives. And it goes on here. These are, again, they're sort of like tweaks around the edges. So this is one of those rare areas where they did, even though it's super weak, they did get something done. In almost no other areas did they get anything done. Biden's been just blocked from doing anything, and then he just sits there and doesn't even fight for the things oftentimes. So it's a rare area where something got done, but again, I'll leave it up to you guys. To me, I do think it falls short. I definitely would have done a high-capacity magazine ban, or at least fought for that, held meetings on it, twisted some arms on it. National red flag law definitely would have done. But so, I mean, look, in conclusion, I totally sympathize with the guy who lost a kid. And, you see Washington and Biden sort of celebrating as if they're heroes this very mild, weak gun reform package. And I think that probably offends that father. I think he probably looks at it like, who are you kidding? We know that this is weak. And I'm just guessing here, but I said in a previous show, we have about 39,000 gun deaths a year. Maybe this will drop to 37,000 as a result of some of these laws. And it's good. Any step in the right direction is good, but is that where we're comfortable remaining? Are we still comfortable with 37,000 or so gun deaths a year? And, I'd like to reduce that just a little bit more. Call me crazy. So I feel bad for the father. And more should have at least been fought for, but it is true at the end of the day, this is an area where we at least got a little something done. But the downside of that is, too, now whenever a mass shooting happens again, and it already did since then, now they turn around and say, I don't know what you're talking about. We already did everything we could. We passed that bipartisan legislation. So it almost takes the wind out of the sails of that movement for not much gain. A good comparison would be if they passed some sort of campaign finance reform that was super weak, and then whenever there's a corruption story, they turn around and say, I don't know what you're talking about. We already addressed this, so it's fine. No, it's not. It's really not. So anyway, that's the gist of it, and I'll leave it up to you guys to determine whether or not you think this is enough, how much further it should go, but ultimately, my sympathies do lie with the father, and I understand the heckling. And to be fair, I think Biden handled that okay. I don't think he went too far, and I think he was sort of fair in dealing with that. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.